I'd like to call the organizational meeting of calendar year 2016 with the Carolina Board of Supervisors to order. Our first item on the agenda tonight is election of a chairman. Do we have nominations for election of a chairman?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Jeff Seeley as chairman.
Second.
Any other nominations? Motion to close the nomination?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor of the nomination of Mr. Seeley to be chairman for the 2016 calendar year for the Board of Supervisors, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hearing none, that carries, and we're glad to turn the gavel over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cully. Thank you, fellow board members. The next is the election of the vice chair. The floor is open for nominations.
I'd like to nominate Jeff Black.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion to second. Any other nominations at this time? I'll take a motion to close nominations.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of Mr. Black as vice chair, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Mr. Black, congratulations. Adoption of the rules for all those, they are in the board packet. I hope everybody, new and old, has had a chance to take a look at them. I'm not opting for any changes. Does anybody have any changes to the rules?
Mr. Seeley, I have one request, well, two requests actually. One is that under section 4.2, public comments, that we also request a sign-in sheet so we have appropriate spelling for those who speak in case we want to contact them later. And my second request would be for the board packages to come out one day earlier. I work on Saturdays and Mondays, so getting them late on Thursday is hard. Plus, I think it's also more considerate for your staff. If they want to take a long weekend, they're not held late at work putting together a package. So that would be my recommendation, minor changes.
Mr. Chairman, I
Mr.
differ
Thomas?
with the sign-in sheets. We actually do sign-in sheets when the meetings are long
Okay.
or when there are a lot of people. But I've been to other meetings in the county where they have a sign-in sheet and it looks like it inhibits people who want to speak. So with all due respect, I'd ask that we not add that one, but I'm sure that we do, when it's a long meeting. Plus, Ms. Hall does a great job of spelling people's names.
I don't envy her having to look for those spellings. All right, so how about the having the board packets come out on Thursday? Is that a problem, Mr. Cully, or
No,
Ms. Hall?
we had talked to Mrs. Long, and I agree that we'll just back everything up. We'll move our staff meetings to Wednesday, and I've already told the department heads last week that we would move everything and get those out on Thursday evening. So we don't have an issue with that at all. Just get moving on it for the next meeting.
All right, thank you. So we have one change to the board rules. Anything else, Mr. Underwood? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
These are separate from the dates, correct?
These are separate from the dates, yes. That will be the next, well, it's 2 agenda items down, but we will get there. Hearing none, can I have a motion for one amendment to the board rules and to adopt them with that one amendment?
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any nays? Ayes have it, motion carries. We will move on to regular board meetings. We typically have been meeting on the twice in the even months, the second and fourth Tuesdays, and the second Tuesday of each month on the odd months, or on the even months rather. Anybody have any comments or additions to board meetings?
Have issue with the March dates and request that we find alternatives to the second and fourth, perhaps first and third weeks that month. The fifth week in the month is after Easter, so that's not really an option for a board meeting. I expect staff will be on vacation, many of them.
Okay.
Mr. Seeley, if you don't mind, for me, the November 22nd meeting,
Yes, sir.
that's usually the Tuesday right before Thanksgiving. So I would recommend that we move it either,
Well, we have a meeting on the 10th, so don't forget that.
right,
Now, we could, depending on what's going on, we could actually combine those two meetings. Or, yeah, and, right, and combine the two November meetings and move anything potential to the meeting in December?
We moved, in the past, we moved the last meeting in November to December. It was the
Correct.
first week in December, or we had two, or we combined those in December. So, I mean, we can do that later in the year as we get closer. It's up to you.
Let's say we're going to take a look at the November 22nd meeting like in June or July, and we'll see what's in the future of the agendas. But we will note that the 22nd needs to have something done. Are there any issues with moving the March meeting to the first Monday in March, or the first Tuesday in March, and the third Tuesday in March? Is that correct, Mr. Forehand?
Mr. Seeley, I may have a conflict with March 8th, but
Okay.
let's go ahead and move it, and then we'll see.
Yeah, we can always revisit
We
this
can
in
yeah.
February if we
Let's-
have to.
Let's just do that. Let's go ahead and move it.
So we will move the March meetings
to the 8th.
to the
To the
first
first, yeah.
and to the
We're good.
15th. Any other date corrections? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to accept the new calendar.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
I have a motion.
Do I need to make a motion with those changes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the calendar with changes to the March 8th meeting. We'll meet in March, on March 1st and March 15th.
Thank you, sir. And the November 22nd meeting we will talk about later in the year.
Correct.
All right, everybody clear on the motion?
Say that one more time.
We will move March 8th to March 1st, March 22nd to March 15th, and we will revisit November 22nd in July or August. I have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Next is the Board of Supervisors appointments. First is Rappahannock Area on Aging. Mr. Underwood, you have traditionally done that. Would you like to continue?
Board wishes, Mr. Chairman, I have an issue.
Can I have a motion to have Mr. Underwood continue on Rappahannock Area on Aging?
so moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Social Services Board, I would like to go back to Social Services. There are some issues that I was still working and would like to go back and finish. Can I have a motion?
Mr. Seeley, I'll move that you serve on the Social Services Board. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? George Washington Regional Commission, we have two board members that typically serve on that.
Mr. Seeley, I've served on that in the past, and I enjoy that board, so I'd like to continue if you don't mind, if the board wishes.
That would be fine. Ms. Long, would you like to serve as a new member on the George Washington Regional Commission?
I can do that.
Any issues with that from any other board members?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Mr. Seeley and Ms. Nancy Long to the George Washington Region. Oh, Mr. Black. Excuse me, to the Board of Washington Regional Commission.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The Rappahannock Regional Disability Services Board. Traditionally, that has been Mr. Cully, unless somebody really has a desire to do that.
I'd like to motion Mr. Cully continue
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
I'll second that, Mr. Thomas.
before he has a chance to
Chance to
convince
say-
anybody
change.
otherwise.
There's an advantage.
I wanted to serve Mr. Cully, but sorry.
Having a motion and a second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The Fredericksburg Chamber Military Affairs Council, I would like to continue. It's one of the passions I've got, if nobody has an issue.
Motion, Mr. Seeley, be on the Fredericksburg Chamber of Commerce Military Affairs Council.
Second.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Rappahannock River Basin Commission has typically been Mr. Black.
Mr. Seeley, I very much enjoy that commission, and I would like to continue to serve on it if the board so wishes.
I have no issue with that. Do I have a second to, or a motion for Mr. Black, or is that a motion?
He can't, so move, Mr. Chairman. He can't make the motion.
That's true.
So,
I'll second.
I got a motion and second from Mr. Thomas. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Fredericksburg Regional Alliance. I
Mr.
understand.
Chairman, I'd like to move that Clay Forehand be assigned to the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance Committee.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second for Mr. Forehand to serve on the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Recreation Advisory Committee. That has typically been me. I will stay unless somebody really wants it. I understand. Mr. Thomas, do you want to do Recreation Committee?
I think you've done a fine job, and I will motion that you continue.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
I'm actually open to serving on that board unless someone else.
Or if Mr. Forehand would like to serve, I'd motion he would serve.
I have no issue with that, Mr. Forehand. Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are now through the actual organizational meeting. I'd like to now call the regular meeting of the Caroline County Board of Supervisors to order. To the far end is Mr. Floyd Thomas from the Mattaponi District, Mr. Clay Forehand from the Madison District, Ms. Nancy Long from the Port Royal District, Mr. Reggie Underwood from Reedy Church, Mr. Jeff Black from the Western Caroline District, and I am Jeff Seeley from the Bowling Green District. If we could all stand, would Mr. Thomas mind doing the invocation?
Sure. Let us pray. Dear Father God, we come before you this day thanking you for your many blessings. We thank you for the blessing of this day. We thank you for all you've done in our lives. We ask now, Lord, that you watch over us as we start this new year, this new term for the Caroline County Board of Supervisors. We ask that you guide us with your wisdom, give us strength, give us the courage to do things that are right for the county, to make this county better, which is what we all want to do. These and all blessings we ask in the name of your Son, our resurrected Savior, Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen. Could you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Cully, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, staff doesn't have any amendments to the agenda.
So the agenda will stand as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I do have an amendment to the agenda, please.
Okay.
At the last meeting, we had discussed public hearing on Clark's Cut. I voted in the affirmative on that. I would like to make a motion to reconsider that somewhere in the agenda.
Can we do that under new business? So under 8A, can we add the reconsider motion for Clark's Cut?
Mr. Chairman, as a point of order,
Yes, sir?
that motion would be out of order. Motions to reconsider are always in order if there's been a negative vote. In this case, there was an affirmative vote. That particular motion is out of order because of Robert's Rules of Order said that if any action has taken place based on the board's action, you can't reconsider it. I understand that Mr. Sneed has taken action, so we wouldn't be able to consider it.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to actually consider going into closed meeting to discuss this with council.
I have a motion for closed meeting.
Does the motion to reconsider is on the floor?
The motion, there's no second, and it's not on the agenda. And at this point, if there's a motion to actually get legal advice to go into a reconsider motion, I think that at this time, a motion for legal advice before we amend the agenda would be in order.
If he pulls his motion to reconsider, it would be in order. He can make his motion to reconsider at any point in time.
Therefore, I will pull the motion at this time.
So we will revisit the reconsider motion.
You will get legal advice.
Legal advice before we go, I agree, let me finish. We're going to get legal advice before we go to the reconsider motion. So at the break between the first half of the agenda and 7:30, I'm hoping we can go into closed session, resolve that. So there is potentially an amendment to the agenda that will be decided after we have legal advice. So we will leave the motion to amend the agenda open. Everybody, other comments?
Do I need to read that? That's fine.
Not yet. Opening board comments, Mr. Thomas.
I have a few, Mr. Chairman. First of all, those of us who've used the county website may notice that it's been revised. It looks quite a bit better. The real key, Mr. Cully's done a great job with the consultant we brought in last year. The real key there has been to ensure that citizens who may or may not have access to the internet can use the website via their smartphones. That's the biggest thing. I've been working with it myself. So it does work. There are a few issues because obviously there's quite a bit of data out there that's old and we're moving a lot of old data in. So if you see any issues, let Mr. Cully know. I've worked on a few things there with Mr. Cully. Want to give kudos to Cassie Ruby, who was able to set up the electronic board packet the way it used to be. We can actually pull out individual files. The first time I tried it Friday, I got one file that was 250 pages, which was not acceptable. Cassie fixed it on Monday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, so that's great. Other good news is, Germanna has started its classes this month, and they're in the Belmont Professional Building. They're having more classes in the future. Mr. Wilson is here, so we need to, as soon as possible, set up our grand opening celebration for them. And one of the other businesses I happen to stop by and visit, Ruther Glen Dental, which is part of what's there, so that's going to be a great thing. And also want to say congratulations to the new board members that are here. Welcome to the board, and remember the job's not as easy as it looks, and you'll find out shortly. And the last thing is that the board will remember that in November, our financial consultant said the county was in the best shape it's ever been, or the best shape that it's been since 2000 when they started working with it. So we've set the bar high, and we just need to keep it going. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Foreham?
I have some comments. Me being the first board meeting, I wanted to take a moment to thank the residents of the Madison District for the opportunity to serve on their behalf on this board. I do look forward to the coming year. I'm excited about it, and I'm humbled by the support that I've received. I can only hope to live up to the expectations that have been placed upon me and the board as a collective. To prevent a little speculation on the priorities of my priorities in the coming months and years, I would like to share a few of those now. One, I feel that due process and transparency in government is of the utmost importance, and I will encourage and expect the highest degree of such of myself, of the board, and of the staff. Next, I have come to realize that business growth is perhaps the only reasonable way that we can overcome our current debt and financial impediments. And as such, I plan to work diligently to grow commerce with the staff, with however I can in the community in the coming years, and I expect that we will see tangible and visible results in the coming years. While I'm full of optimism for the positive changes that have occurred within our school system, I also know that making lasting and noteworthy changes within our community will require more work by the school staff, school board, Dr. Parker, Board of Supervisors, other community leaders, and last but not least, the parents of our school-age children. Success in this area will only come with a higher level of involvement, trust, and effort from all of us. I value a quality education and will support and advocate for this positive change in our community, but I am acutely aware that this is not solely a money issue. Next, we must develop long-term plans and solutions for our fire and EMS staffing and our county water supply and our related capital expenditures for those things. This responsibility cannot be passed to the next board in 4 years. And lastly, I feel that this board should be as predictable as humanly possible, not in the relationship sense that's stale and outdated, but again, the transparency in what we do is expected. I envision this board to be open to new ideas, tactics to accomplish our common goals. I expect the board to research, prioritize, and use extensive planning to allocate our future expenditures. As Mr. Thomas said, we are in an improving situation, but we still have a long ways to go. I expect the board to understand and communicate the vision for each branch of county government. If they have an idea, I expect it to be known by all. I want us to engage not only the vocal minority, but the quiet majority that is craving leadership from this body. And lastly, I want us to never forget that we are the highest governing body in Caroline County, that local government affects the people the most, that we currently possess the public trust to perform on their behalf, and that we individually and collectively are ultimately responsible and accountable for any failures within government over the next 4 years. Thank you for listening to those, and I plan to live those out throughout this term. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forehand. Ms. Long?
Yes, thank you. Well said, Mr. Forehand. Good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank the staff and the board members for the warm welcome, the guidance I've received over the past weeks getting ready for tonight, and hopefully continued guidance in the future years ahead. My prayer for this board is that we learn to work together as a team, and that we will agree, but we will also disagree, and that hopefully we can do that without keeping score. And that our goal is to protect and improve Caroline County now and to build a strong foundation for the future. I have no doubt that along the way, listen to all the sports talk earlier, we're going to miss a few goals or a few extra points along the way, but that we'll be able to get ourselves back together and remember that we are a team working for the common goal to the people of this county. To the citizens that are here tonight, thank you for being here. Caring and giving of your time to build a stronger community is what we need. And going back to the sports analogy, you need to think of yourselves as our coaches. Don't assume we know what play you want to run. Keep in communications with us. That's the best way that we can represent you. Don't assume that we know what's needed or what you want. Get on that phone and call us. That's what we need if we're going to have a successful game. The other thing I wanted to clarify is that I want to acknowledge tonight Miss Christine Tillman of Reedy Church. She was the first female supervisor on this board. I am the first from the Port Royal District, but she was the first on this board some 25 years ago. which says a lot for Caroline County. And I just hope that she's happy to see me sitting up here and that my service will do her memory honor. And with that being said, let's get to work, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Long. Mr. Underwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of announcements. First, I want to say Happy New Year to everyone. On January 17th, St. John's Baptist Church is having a Martin Luther King program at 3 o'clock. So I'm hoping that those of you who can attend, please attend. Mr. Chairman, over the holiday, I've had a chance to spend some time with some of the elder members in the Reedy Church District. And I'd like to ask this board to join with me in February during Black History Month and honor Miss Sarah Quash, who's 97 years old, who still gets around and goes to every event and is still supporting the growth of the Reedy Church in the Caroline County community. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Mr. Black?
I have a few. First of all, I want to apologize. I've been sick, and so I've been coughing, and sorry. So just bear with me. First of all, I want to welcome the new board members here to Caroline and to the Board of Supervisors. It's a refreshing change, and I really look forward to it. Second thing is, as many of you saw, kind of an ongoing battle in the newspaper. The State Corporation Commission came out with their final ruling on the rate case. There was two cases in front of the Corporation Commission. One was what they call the surcharge case, where Aqua Virginia tried to impose a 10% surcharge on the bills of the customers in many parts of Caroline that were served by Aqua. That did fail. That was a huge success on our part. The rate case took almost a year to actually get a verdict. We actually had a hearing here in March of last year in which we had citizens. The State Corporation Commission got over 1,000 letters from consumers across the state. And Aqua Virginia was the hearing examiner. The process is basically people have an opportunity to, Aqua Virginia proposes a interim rate increase, which was, roughly 12 to 15% depending. And then they get to impose that rate, or the interim rate, and then citizens can argue in front of the State Corporation Commission why this is, their case, why this is a burden to them. We had several people here, we had 50 people here speak in March. The hearing examiner recommended, they asked for approximately 1.4 million. The hearing examiner recommended approximately $980,000 in revenue for Aqua Virginia. And it went to the commission. The hearing examiner listens to everyone, and then the hearing examiner recommends. The commission has final say. And the frustrating part on our end is the commission actually gave Aqua more money than the hearing examiner allowed or recommended. There's just absolutely no excuse for this. I know it's a commission that is chosen, an appointed commission, but when is enough enough? The people of, there was a great article in the paper, the people of these communities that are served by water and sewer by this company are getting beaten time and time and time again. When is enough is enough? It is absolutely ridiculous to get phone calls from people that are really more upset about their water and sewer bill than their tax bill. And I can honestly say in the 4 years that I was in office, the last term, that was the case. When you've got a family of four that's paying $150 to $200 a month for water and sewer alone, that is outrageous and ridiculous. And I don't know what the answer is. The answer that we can start today there's a Senate Bill 85, and then there was a House bill, just got a number yesterday, in which we can ask, we have a resolution, I'm asking the board to support that will start to put some regulations on these it's a runaway monopoly. It's out of control. And it's frustrating, and it hurts communities. It hurts us in Caroline. It does not help us to be served by Aqua Virginia. So I just want to I ask the board to support that resolution. Many residents feel that they have gone through the process, and time again they lose. So they feel like it doesn't matter. Every time we have an opportunity to speak out, why speak out? Because we're going to lose. And that's disheartening and frustrating. So I asked the board to support that resolution. I will when we get to it. All right. And then the second thing, the last thing is the Lake Landor did adopt a highway, basically west of Lake Landor to the apartments, and then or west of Landor to the winery and east to the apartments. We did our trash pickup over the weekend. I would like to thank the Sheriff's Department. They put the speed trailer out there for us. We had extra patrols. They did an excellent job. I'd like to thank the VDOT for the signs and everything that they, Mr. Whiteman, thank you for helping us with that as well. That's a great community event. We had 12 people out there. Mr. Lease is here today. He helped out with that. We had members from the board in Lake Landor, the POA board that helped out. So it was a really community event, and I appreciate all the help. So that's it for my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. And just to follow up on Mr. Black's comment on water in the lake communities, one of the points that I want everybody to understand is that that water company now owns more than 20% or has control of over more than 20% of Caroline County real estate in those communities, and that does have a very big impact on Caroline County as far as the tax base goes and the ability to sell those homes and folks to move into them. So it's not just a fight for those folks in the community, but it does affect the rest of the county in ways that you don't always see. I went to the rate hearings and listened, and I will tell you that that was one of the points I made to the commissioner that was here, and apparently it didn't go far enough, but I would encourage the board to pass that resolution. Second of all, at our last board meeting, we had the folks here that are doing reassessment, and I had asked them for some of the materials that they were using. And Mr. Colley, have we seen those? Because now we're ever closer to being complete, and I don't believe the numbers that they actually read to us. I don't see where the whole county is raised real estate value-wise 2%. I've watched homes sell for $50,000 and $60,000 below the assessed values, and I would really like to see those numbers, and I would like to push them before they think they're going to come present to the Board of Supervisors. I think we all need an opportunity to look at those figures and not have them dumped on us just before our board meeting. Those are my comments. We will move into presentations, and the first is renewal of the health and dental insurance coverage for plan year covering March 1, 2016 through February 2017. Mr. Pardon.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm going to introduce Nancy Grasso, who's with Digital Benefits, the county's benefits consultant, who's going to cover this issue. Nancy?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for having me tonight. Happy New Year. Welcome to the new board members, and good to see all the remaining faces. I wanted to talk briefly about our health insurance and dental renewal. This year, so 4 years ago, we went to a self-funded product. We changed from a fully insured traditional type platform to a self-funded platform. I'm here to report that it's actually performing very well, probably a little bit better even than expected. So things are moving in the right direction. We were able to keep the rates flat, keeping all the products the same. So we're looking to continue our health insurance coverage without changing any benefits to the employees, without raising the rates to either the county or the employees, and keeping all the rates level, as well as the dental. So we're really recommending no changes whatsoever.
Board members' comments. I'm just glad to hear that our rates are staying exactly the same, because I think that is good news from what we've all heard in the news and from other organizations. Mr. Thomas.
Ms. Grasso, I have a note here. Well, first of all, thank you, of course, for the great news that costs didn't go up. This is the second year. I think they were insignificant last year. Mm-hmm. So
only in 1 year over the last 4.
Oh, the last 4.
Mm-hmm. Have we taken any increases, and they were slight.
Okay. That's great to hear. I guess something in the healthcare industry is working. My question, though, had to do with the changes. One in particular is we're changing the autism identification age from 6 to 10.
Correct. That's not really a voluntary change. That's a change that the legislation has changed on a national level, and therefore it's impacting your plan.
What legislation?
Part of the,
Affordable Care Act?
yeah, well, part of the Affordable Care Act, but it's not really piled into that. It's
Yeah.
part of the legislation that was originally carved out, that was readdressed, and then affirmed that the ages would change.
Okay. I don't have a lot of experience with autism, but I would think an issue like that would be better addressed the earlier it's identified. So I'm wondering, is there any way we can keep it at 6, or do we have to go to 10? Because I'm sure there's some residents in the county who have children with autism who are going to say, I got to now wait 4 more years before I can get help.
Yeah, and so autism as a whole is not completely deferred till age 10. There's just parts of the treatment protocols that are moved from 6 to 10. I don't believe in any way that we could change that, but I will check on it to see, because you are self-funded, if you can make that change. But I think it's packaged into all the plans across the state.
Okay. If you could check that,
I will.
I would really appreciate that, because I think that's something that, if it's no gigantic cost to us, we ought to try to help those citizens who need that help.
Fair enough.
I'm not going to ask you anymore ever again if we can switch to June, because we're still always in January or February trying to do it, but it's the same budget number regardless. So thank you very much for your hard work. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I did have one other thing that I neglected to say that Mr. Parton reminded me, and that is this year we're going to offer an enhanced benefit on the dental program at an optional basis. So we're going to allow folks to opt into orthodontic coverage.
orthodontic one.
Yeah, the traditional coverage that we've offered hasn't offered orthodontic services, and there was a request for that by many of the employees. So we're adding it and allowing the employees who are interested in it to buy up to that program.
Other questions? Mr. Pardon, when do we need to actually vote on the health care for the next fiscal year? Because it's not on the agenda, it's here as informational, so if we need to, then we need to actually...
It goes into effect in February.
We would very much like a vote tonight, Mr. Chairman. Our plan year, because it's on a plan year basis, which spans 2 fiscal years. And therefore, traditionally, the board votes on it this time of year, and our current plan is up as of February 29th.
Okay, at the...
Mr. Chairman, would you
Right.
would you be willing to accept a motion to accept this as an amendment to the agenda?
That's exactly what Mr. Underwood was just asking, and I would like to go ahead. It's not on the agenda. Can we add this to new business 8A?
If you need a motion, I'll make that motion.
That's true. 8B.
Well, 8A is not really here yet,
I was going to say, but
so it's still 8A.
8A, and we will make that adoption of
Healthcare?
health and dental benefits. That's all right. So that will be 8A. Next presentation is from the department. Not yet, we're going to do it under 8A. We're going to amend the agenda after, that is still open. After we do legal, we will come back and amend the agenda, and that will be part of the amendment for the agenda. Okay? Any questions on that? Tonight we have with us Mrs. Wendy Sneed, the Director of Social Service, a short report on Caroline Social Services. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Wendy Sneed. I'm the Director for Social Services here in Caroline. I'm very happy that you've allowed me to come to share some information about my agency. I thought this was a good time and a good opportunity to say hello and match my face with my name and hear a little bit more about us. I provided in advance a copy of our agency brochure, and our most recent statistics. Let me talk into the mic so you can hear me. Hey, okay. I know that some of you are very familiar with us, so I hope that I don't bore you. I'm happy to point out that some of our Board of Social Services members are here. Lee Basden and Bonnie Kilgore. Is anyone else here? What? Okay. Caroline Social Services currently has 32 staff members, all but 2 are full-time. We have 3 units, benefits, services, and administration. Benefits is our largest unit. We have 16 staff members, which includes 2 supervisors. Their programs include SNAP, which is Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. This is formerly known as food stamps. These can be used to purchase eligible food items from authorized retailers. Eligibility is based on income. There are different certification periods based on age and work status, but cases must be reviewed at least quarterly or twice a year based on those factors. We currently have 2,114 households receiving SNAP in this county. Medicaid is our medical assistance program. Recipients must meet financial eligibility and be in a covered group such as children, pregnant women, or elderly disabled adults. Cases require annual certification, and we currently have 4,763 Medicaid cases in the county. TANF is temporary assistance to needy families. This is the monthly welfare benefit that many are familiar with. Eligibility is based on income, and there must be at least 1 child in the home. Cases require annual certification, and there are currently 137 TANF cases. In the services unit, we have 9 staff members, including 1 supervisor. Their programs include VIEW, which is Virginia Initiative for Employment, Not Welfare. This is employment services program. TANF recipients are required to participate unless they are medically exempt or have a child under the age of 1. Workers assess clients' employment history, education, and training, and offer services to promote job readiness and work skills that promote self-sufficiency. Workers are in monthly contact with clients to assess progress and to assist with job retention. There's 72 VIEW cases in Caroline. We have adult protective services, in which we investigate reports of abuse, neglect, and exploitation of adults aged 60 and older and incapacitated adults aged 18 and older. Workers visit with the adult at their residence at least once and must contact all appropriate collaterals in the course of the investigation. This investigation must be completed within 45 days. If protective services are needed and accepted, workers arrange for services that might include home-based care, pre-admission screenings for assisted living facilities or nursing homes, or, if warranted, legal intervention to protect the client. In child protective services, we investigate reports of abuse and neglect of children. Our goal is to assess families' strengths and needs and provide services to enhance safety, to preserve families, and to prevent further maltreatment. Our approach is non-punitive, and it's directed towards enabling families to provide adequate care for their children. These investigations must be completed within 60 days. Workers visit with children and their families, usually more often than once, usually more than once. And they have to contact all appropriate collaterals during the course of the investigation. If ongoing services are needed, workers continue to visit with children and their families monthly and arrange for services such as evaluations, parenting education, and counseling. And we have foster care and foster care prevention. Currently, there are 20 children in our agency's custody. Children enter care due to abuse or neglect or through a court order. When possible, we work to prevent removal by offering services to alleviate the family crisis. When that is not possible and removal is necessary, foster care offers temporary safe placement for these children. Our goal is to return the children to their parents as soon as possible. If that's not possible, then we work towards placing children with relatives or in adoptive homes. Workers visit with children in foster care monthly and arrange for services to promote reunification or to work towards a permanent placement. Our third unit is our administrative unit, which includes 4 clerical staff, myself, the assistant director, and our CSA coordinator. CSA stands for the Children's Services Act. This was a law enacted in 1993 that established a single state pool of funds to purchase services for at-risk youth and their families. Social Services is the fiscal agent for Caroline's CSA program. Many of you know this to be a large budget item for the county, and I would be glad to return at another time to discuss this program in detail if you would like. I did want to include that Social Services created the Caroline Resource Council in 2014. This consists of public, nonprofit, and private agencies that serve Caroline, as well as church representatives and individual volunteers. We seek to build relationships as a community, get to know each other better, identify priority needs in the county, and act to meet those needs. Our 3 current committees are Christmas Partners, which this last Christmas served 457 children in the county. Our Food Committee maintains a listing of all current food resources in the county. They solicit donations to stock the Social Services food pantry. And they manage the Thanksgiving program, which last Thanksgiving served 119 households in the county. And our third committee is the Foster Parent Recruitment Committee. We desperately need foster homes in Caroline that serve Caroline children. We currently only have 2 families that take Caroline children in Caroline, so the rest of our children are placed elsewhere. One is as far away as Danville. In closing, I'd like to share that I grew up in Caroline. I've worked on and off for Caroline Social Services since 1990. It's my duty now as director to promote sound practices, to maintain a healthy work environment where good employees will stay, and to build relationships within the community so that we may serve those in need in the most effective way possible. If you ever have any questions or need additional information, please call me, come see me, or talk to one of my staff members. Thank you.
I have one question. I don't know if you heard earlier that Germanna has come to do training.
Yes.
And under the VIEW program, is there a way we can marry up those individuals with Germanna to actually move forward, group people forward? Is that something that you all can work on?
Absolutely. It's an existing partnership that we have already with Germanna's other sites. So now that they're even closer,
Right.
we will definitely take advantage of that. We have good contacts within Germanna and also have some Germanna representatives on my resource council. So we're going to be talking to them a lot in the near future.
Great. Other questions?
Just
Mr. Underwood?
Yeah, just one, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Need, if I heard you correctly, I'm looking at your numbers. So you're servicing almost 8,000 folks in the county? Is that what you, in a county of 29,000?
Don't ask
You-
a social worker for math.
I'm
Yes,
just-
you're correct.
Do any of those overlap?
That's my,
Is that your
sorry.
question? Yes. Some do.
some do overlap. So I see you have 4763 on Medicaid. Some of those folks would be included in your SNAP numbers also, is that correct?
As well as the TANF numbers,
As
yes,
those
sir.
So that would go down some, but
Not much.
looks like you're providing service to about 20+% of the county.
It's a good number. In our
So-
county, we have a 12% poverty rate,
Right.
those who live in poverty. So to say we serve 20%, that sounds about right.
Right. And Ms. Need, I really appreciate all that you do with the little that you have. So you have 16 staff members, and that's a pretty good haul for those folks. So
Absolutely, they work very
We do
hard.
appreciate it, and certainly we look forward to having a different conversation later. Thank you.
Thanks.
Other board members?
May I?
Mr. Towers?
Ms. Need, you just said something, you service almost 20% of the county, and you just said 16% of the county was was at or below the poverty level?
12%.
12%. Okay, that's better than 16, but that's still really high.
It is.
Do you have, I'm sure your folks work with those people, do you have any reason or idea of what the root cause of that is? Is it lack of education, lack of job opportunities, all of the above, or?
Yes. We have in this county a good number of folks that have been living in generational poverty. It is how they operate. They have great skills within the world of poverty. They know where the resources are. They know where my office is. They know how to access those services. But they do spend a lot of time alleviating their own crises and not able to plan ahead to move out of poverty, because that's how they were raised.
Yeah, and we've had this discussion before.
A lot.
You and I, and a lot is true, and I can understand when having been there, when you're hungry and you can't eat or have nothing to eat, that's all you think about. You don't necessarily
Right.
think about tomorrow, you think about today.
Right, keeping the lights on.
And I'm just trying to figure out, in this forum right now, if we have a way that the county, aside from all the jobs that we have coming to the county, is there another way and where we could focus our attention? Because I know we gave you a couple of people last year,
Yes,
or we didn't give you a couple, but you hired a couple people and the county's paying for those.
yes.
You don't need any more people this year, do you?
We're not requesting it in this coming year's budget, no.
Okay, so we need to figure out, and I guess there'll be, Mr. Seeley will be on the Social Services Board, so he'll probably come back and tell us what county efforts we can do aside from the job programs we're thinking about doing. Okay.
And I will say, Mr. Thomas, that we have some of the religious organizations also working to try to solve some of this. If we can marry all of those resources together instead of everybody going separate directions,
Yes.
it would really
That's the
push
issue
us
we got.
forward.
We got, and Wendy and I have been on the Ministers' Council before. We've got 14 different people out there doing 14 different things, and we're all hitting a little bit, and really I'm looking for a solution. If they're coming to your office because they need services, then maybe we need to insist that they come for some extra job training or educational program or something like that. Really, nobody wants to be poor all their life.
Correct, correct.
So,
And we understand we are bound by the policies that the state and federal government give us for these programs.
Yeah.
And some have work requirements, and they've been successful. I think that what has happened over the past several years with the TANF program and the VIEW program has made a huge difference in those numbers, and it has helped many people
Right.
move out of poverty and into a more self-sufficient status.
and that's kind of what we're looking for, because that's the reality of the real American dream. Is you can't dream if you're hungry and starving. So, I know you get headaches. Trust me. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Seeley.
Mr. Forehand?
Well, you answered one of my questions. Thank you for the information, and I would be interested to hear other thoughts that you might have on greater topics. Briefly, the CHINS program in the schools, how many people are devoted to the school efforts or the school side of things regarding social services?
Interesting. None are devoted to it.
Okay.
We have, as I stated, we have 9 services staff. One is a supervisor, and several of those staff do family services. So certainly we receive referrals from the school regarding child protective services, or even just a family that may need some additional help, and the family will come and apply for services.
Okay.
But it will be good to develop some of those partnerships a little further. I'd really like to see us concentrate on truancy issues and work with families, especially in elementary age
Yes.
truancy, because that's really a family issue and not a child issue. So there's a lot of work in our future.
Yes,
And I think that we're at a good place to start looking at some more work partnerships so that we can work together and not separately.
Agreed. And the school infrastructure, social services, resource officers, they can all have a piece of that, and we can, in a perfect world, intervene at like you said, in elementary age children, and hopefully try to head it off, at least break the cycle,
Yes.
at some point, so.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Black?
I just had a question. One of the things, I serve on the George Washington Regional Commission, and one of the things that we were talking about is a lot of regional, how much do you guys work with the GWRC or outside counties at all? To kind of, we talk about pooling resources, but I'm talking to even outside of Carolina on an even more regional level.
We're on a variety of planning district-wide groups. We find that Caroline and King George are often the stepchildren.
Yep.
Not for any negative reason, but just because Spotsylvania is so big, Stafford's so big, and Fredericksburg is in the middle of it, and there they go. And a lot of the regional efforts are very focused on those groups. But, we have partners that serve all of those localities. Rappahannock Area Community Services Board is an agency we all share, and we certainly get good service from them. We do participate. I have workers that have participated with the George Washington Council on the homelessness count. That's always interesting. Bar that, we receive their emails. And if there's something that we have questions about, we'll ask. But I can certainly answer your question in more detail if you'd like later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sneed, for this evening, and we look forward to having you come back probably for some other topics that you mentioned tonight.
Great, thank you.
Appointments. Board of Equalization, Port Royal, and alternates. Mrs. Long, do you have, or were you aware?
Thank you, Mr. Sealy. Yes, I was aware. However, this is an important position to fill, and there's still some questions. One of my questions was answered on the way in because I passed the real estate sign, so I do now know we have 2 people in real estate on this board. I guess my question is that 30% of the members need to be in construction, building, real estate, that type of thing. And we have 5 members, 6 districts, 2 alternates. Is the 30% include the alternates? And we have 6 districts and 5 members. It's very confusing.
I think the 30% would be the percent of the 5 membership of the board.
So the alternates would not count. So with 5, with 2 members, we have 30%. Right. But if we each nominate somebody, we have 6 members.
You can only have 5 that actually are actively
So what you
serving.
need from me are 2 alternates?
2 alternates.
Okay. That sounds
I guess
fair.
we had never,
We've never discussed how the alternates, but I don't have an issue if
I think that would be fair since
I completely agree.
it's the last one.
If you can come up with 2 alternates, do you think you can do that for the next board meeting?
I will certainly try, although I would hope by the time we do this again in 4 years, we'll have 6 members for 6 districts.
We have asked the General Assembly.
We do not have the ability as a board to make it 6 members for 6 districts. That is the state, and the state members were here at our December meeting, and I specifically asked Mr. Fowler to process that legislation. I don't know if he gave you any note of where he is on that, but it's legislation that doesn't cost anything. It's non-political. I don't see why we can't have it done.
I agree.
So
he was going to turn that over to Legislative Services to have something written the last I talked to him.
We'll have to look for bills. I mean, I know that filing is probably, an initial filing is still open until sometime towards the end of January.
I don't know if it's that late. I thought it was like right around Martin Luther King's birthday or that week, which would be next week.
You may be correct. I know bills can still go in, so we'll have to wait and see when the bill list comes out under General Services and see if a bill went in. But I know that they said that they would introduce one.
Yeah. And it was a simple request to make the board equal to the number of voting districts in that locality.
And I would think
Simple.
between Mr. Ork, Ms. Fowler, and Ms. Ransom, we should be able to get a bill out there.
I would think.
And then the next time this comes around, it will be more appropriate for all the districts. So Yes, I will try to come up with two names for you for the next meeting on that. And thank you for the explanation.
Mr. Black, do you have a social services board member for the Western Caroline District?
And she is president. I would like to, because she said it's so easy, but I would like to nominate Miss Bonnie Kilgore-Lease for a second term.
I have a motion. Do we have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you, Ms. Kilgore-Lease, for coming back to the Social Services Board. Mrs. Long, do you have a Board of Zoning Appeals member?
I have spoken to someone. She wants a day or two to think about it and will get back to me. I also checked with staff. There are no cases coming up or scheduled to be coming up for the Board of Zoning Appeals. So if I could please defer that until the meeting on the 26th, give her time to think about it.
Not an issue. The last is the Recreation Advisory Committee at large.
Mr. Chairman, I did have someone approach me who is interested in serving on the recreational committee at large, and that's Mr. Jim Heimbach. He's left.
Oh, he's gone. I was going to...
He's left. But he said if there was an opening, it is a program he is interested in, so I would nominate him for a at-large seat.
Ms. Long has made a motion for Mr. Jim Heimbaugh. Second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Do we need any other at-large members? I have one person, actually, Mr. Underwood, she's from your district, lives on 301, Ms. Jamie Schuman. I ran into her at the Christmas parade. She lives right on 301, not too far before Route 30. They sell plants right there.
I don't know her.
Right, I mean, it's
So
at
it's
large.
large, so-
Right. She said she'd be willing to serve.
You want to make that motion?
So if I can have a motion.
Yeah. Go.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second for Ms. Jamie Schuman to serve at large on the Recreational Advisory Committee. All those in favor signify by
Aye.
saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, before you leave appointments.
Yes, sir.
Just a request, kind of, sort of. I was speaking with Mr. Fincham about appointments that are actually posted on our website, and a couple were wrong. So is it possible to have staff give us a list of all of the boards and appointments everybody has?
That would be
and when
good.
those terms expire? I mean, it's supposed to be on the website, but I think we can ask staff to compile those. I've noticed some things because, like Mr. Black, I have a new district. So all of my appointments should be in January, just like his. But I think over the years, one or two has slipped, and I just want to make sure they're on the right schedule.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Black?
I think that's a discussion that, maybe a bigger discussion that we need to have, because that was kind of an issue with the previous board at the end. It is my opinion, I don't know if we can legally do it, that a new board member, whoever that may be, should be allowed to pick their.
Well-
And I mean, so I wonder. I'm just saying is no. I'm not saying now. I'm just saying for in the future, down the road, is there a way that we could change that? Is that something we can look at least?
I guess that's something that needs to be researched, and can we go ahead and take that and see what we can do to line the scheduling or the reappointments up better with elections? Is that something we can look at?
Now, some of those, and trust me, when I came, it was 4 members, and I was the 5th board member.
Right.
What had been done previously, my understanding from the Stone Age was that some of those were, I guess, staggered to make sure if there was an entirely new board elected, there wouldn't be an entirely new planning commission, an entirely new social services. So some of those were staggered, but I know Mr. Black and I have the uniqueness of new districts being created from
Correct.
the original 4. So ours should be the same, and I think the others are staggered, but
See, my my planning, I guess that's why all the dates would be, my planning commission member is actually a full year before the election.
right.
Yeah, and we had two that
And-
were appointed at the end.
And I don't know how we end up with 2 just at the very end of a term, because it should be a year before, 2 years before, and a year after they start. And we've got 2 that are 2 months before the new board seats, which flies in the face of they should be staggered, because they should have been 1, 2, 3, and then another 1, and that's not how we're turning up now. So somewhere along the way, we've appointed somebody that was didn't fulfill a term and then finished it, and then it looks like that reappointment fell on a different schedule. So I guess what we need to do is have some research done and figure out where those, because I do agree that they should be staggered, but we shouldn't have 2 on probably some of the oldest districts that are in the county, because Bowling Green, Reedy Church, Port Royal, and Madison were original districts, and Madison and Port Royal fall at the same time, and they shouldn't. Mr. Colley?
The BZA is a 5-year term, so that one that just happened, I mean, depends on what.
Well, this
what
is like
the
planning commission.
Planning Commission, Social Services, what's the list we have? Those are the 2 that I was really concerned about, but there are more.
Right.
Correct.
But they're filling
BZA is 5
unexpired
years.
terms whenever a term ends, and somebody's, they end before a term ends, they fill the unexpired term. So it's ending for when the term should be. We can research,
Can we
maybe-
at least, because they should be 3, 2, 1.
Well, if we can get a list of what we have and their expiration dates, that's a good start, and we could have the discussion at another time of how to
Correct.
make them staggered or not staggered. I'm going to be consistent, and I'm going to be upset if somebody comes in at the end of their term and makes an appointment. But we should also understand that the previous Port Royal supervisor went 3.5 years without making an appointment. So we didn't make a big fuss about it then. We made a big fuss about it afterwards. I just want to be consistent. We'll have that discussion when we get to it.
And that's what doesn't make sense, is there shouldn't be a 3.5-year term. There should have been
Right.
1, 2, and 3, because it's a 4-year term. Well,
can-
planning commission's 4.
We can have that
BZA
discussion when
is
it comes
fine.
up. Yeah.
But we need to look at where that went amiss.
We can have
because
that
I think-
discussion at a later point.
Yep.
And I'd agree.
Okay. Consent agenda. Anybody have any
I have-
issues?
I have questions on C and D.
Mr. Thomas would like to pull C and D.
Well, just questions.
Well, you got to pull them to ask questions. Do I have a motion to approve A and B?
I'll make a motion to approve A and B.
Second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items A and B. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Mr. Thomas?
Item
Item
C.
C.
Item C is actually the amendment of the school budget for security equipment grant and E-rate grant funding. I have no problem with that. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I'm just wondering, in the amount of $348,000 was a school request, there's a match that goes with that. And I thought, just as procedural, when funds are moved from category to category, the school board is supposed to inform us of that move. And I can't see how this would have been budgeted ahead of time, since these E-grant funds and the security were results of legislation recently passed.
Ms. Hatcher, I see you up. Do you have an explanation?
They can't move from category to category. I mean, we appropriated their budget by category, so they would have to have the funds in the category or come to you and ask for it to be moved. That is correct.
Shouldn't they provide in the category that this is going to?
I mean, I'm all for this. I just want to, I've turned into a bean counter overnight. I don't understand why, but I think there's a process that we're supposed to follow that says this is the process. You want to move these funds over. They ask, we say yes, it's done. I mean, I'm assuming we're going to say yes. I just want to make sure we know which categories they're coming from or going to.
I can find that out for you, and then I'll have to bring that part back at another time. But they do need these
I'm not going to,
fast.
In the agenda, in the financial impact, it says the appropriate technology funds will be used for matching. So I'm taking it this is going to the technology, which is one of the line items we did approve, but that's the only hint we have of this.
that's the real issue. I mean, I trust the new superintendent a lot more than I did the previous one. I believe they're doing the right thing. I believe in the school board. I just want to make sure we dot all the i's and cross all the t's in this particular case, because I don't want to get to June and we find that there's $250,000 missing or short or in the wrong category, which has happened before.
Correct. How do you want to,
I'm all for approving this. I'm willing to approve this. I would just like the information that I asked for.
I'll get that information to you. I'll
Okay.
find out.
Okay.
do you want to make a motion to
I
approve?
will make a motion to approve it so they will understand that I would like to have this happen. So
Agenda item C.
my motion would be to approve agenda item C, which is additional funding for the school system based on funds they receive.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Agenda item D.
It's taking a little longer to double click, but this is the resolution for Mr. Black in reference to Aqua. In the resolution, it hasn't popped up yet, but my memory serves me is somewhere it says public entities a couple of times. And
And it should say private entities.
that was the issue because the county is actually a public entity providing water.
Are they public or are they private? You got a guess?
It's not the
Ben?
resolution, it's in the,
Well, it's in the
Board
resolution as well.
yeah. So the county is actually a public entity. The county is a public entity that provides water. Based on what we're saying in here, the county would be bound by these additional regulations Mr. Black would like to impose. I agree with him as far as doing this for Aqua, but it's just a language issue. And I'm never the grammar person, but public implies county to me.
Mr. Chairman, if I could answer that.
Go ahead, Mr. Black.
A couple things. When someone comes into Lake Landor to buy a house, it'll say public water and sewer, even though it's a private company. It's listed as public. First of all. Second of all, this is really, a lot of this stuff is dealing with the State Corporation Commission.
Which the county has nothing to do with.
We have nothing to do with. So this is really a transparency issue between Aqua, and we want, the purpose of this bill is transparency, how much of the salaries of the people that are president of Aqua Virginia, and so I don't see this bill as targeting a county like us.
No, I don't either. My point is there is obvious confusion if I can read it and say public entity and then know that the county is a public entity. That's all I'm saying. The reality is it should be private water companies because the county would be considered a public water company.
Mr. Cully may be able to shed a little light on this.
Whatever you want to say, just clear up the confusion for me because I'm not the only one confused.
We don't operate under the State Corporation Commission, number one.
I understand that.
So these are things that they deal with in making the salaries available from these. They look at them as a public utility because they're providing public water, not as a governmental utility like
Right.
we are. So it wouldn't really affect us, but even if it did, our salaries are all public information and published in the Richmond Times anyway. So, I mean, there's not really anything that's burdensome by them opening up records of these companies, because our records are open to inspection. We do an audit. All of our things are already available. So I don't think it would apply to us anyway.
That's the reality. Is I don't think it applies to us, but the language is implying that it applies to us. I'm willing to let it go.
Does the state consider Aqua Virginia a public utility?
According to this bill, they do.
Okay.
According to the bill in front of us, they consider them a public
But-
utility.
But in the facts, or, Mr. Chairman, in the frequently asked questions about this bill, the very first one says this bill should help customers of all corporate utilities in the state.
Corporate, we're not a corporation.
That takes the county out of everything.
Correct.
Why does our resolution not say the same thing? That's all I'm saying, which the reality, it could say whatever. I'm just trying to make sure we're not in the same issue with Aqua.
Mr. Pardon?
The only thing I would add, Mr. Chairman, is that the language in the, what is it, the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth whereas was pulled from a description of the bill itself.
Right, I was going to say, it's in the bill.
Yeah, so that's where that came from.
The bill screwed up.
Well, hopefully Mr. Black or I will go down to the General Assembly, and one of us will testify and make sure that gets clarified. But I don't know that you really want to deviate from the bill language, because it'll look like we're talking about something else.
Well, I think if we didn't say public utility and said just what they say in the FAQs, which I guess came from the bill's originator.
Turn
If
your
the
mic on.
FAQs came from the bill's originator, and the bill's originator say corporate utilities, would it hurt to have our thing say corporate utilities? I'm not going to delay it any longer. You can do what you wish. I just wanted to point it out
What
to
if
you.
we did public utilities / corporate utilities and made sure that it was at least in there as the FAQ portion of that as well?
I support the bill. I just want to make sure we don't
Hurt
look
ourselves.
like we're implying the county's doing that. And we're all sitting here saying, yeah, we understand it's not the county. We got a lawyer over there who can argue either way, because that's what lawyers do. Unless it's clear, it's left up to interpretation.
Well, Mr. Emerson, can you shed some light on this then?
Well, first pick a side. First pick a side,
Pick a side and then defend it.
and then pick the other side and defend
I'm
it.
really not sure that I can. I mean, I don't know if Aqua Virginia is probably a privately, a publicly owned company in the sense that it has stockholders, I imagine. But
It does.
I don't know that.
It
for a
does.
fact.
They do
You
have
know,
stockholders,
I
and there's an interesting statistic about investing $1,000 with them 20 years ago. It's worth like $100,000, so they've got stockholders.
Right.
That-
So, I mean, you could talk about,
Somebody told me that
a
20 years ago.
publicly owned company, but I think your point is a good one about keeping the language consistent as well. So, I mean, it's to some extent 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
I merely pointed out as you wish.
Mr. Chairman, I would just assume, because it's the language of the bill, that we keep the resolution as to what the bill is in front of the Senate. That's the bill in front of the Senate, so I would just assume keep it the language the same.
Right. This is just support of the bill. Any further discussion? Can we have a motion?
I will move that agenda item D is approved.
As presented?
As presented, I really don't want to say I told you so, but as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are at the consent agenda. It is 20 after 7. Well, how many? Well, we need to, the only closed session I'd like to do initially is the one to amend the agenda. So, Mr. Black, if you will read you have it? The motion? I'm glad. I'd just like you to read it. That's the resolution.
There we go.
He's got it.
Mr. Chairman, you want to go ahead and do that now?
Yes.
All right. I move that the board convene in closed session pursuant to the consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff exemption, section 2.2-3711.A.7 of the Code of Virginia, to discuss specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by counsel involving the reconsideration of certain actions taken by the board at its December meeting.
We've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are going to stand in recess until the conclusion of our first public hearing. Closed session. At least 20 minutes. I'd like to call the Caroline County Board of Supervisors meeting back to order. I would like to move that Caroline County Board of Supervisors certify that only the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt from the open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which this certification applies. Only such public matters that were identified in the motion convened in closed session meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by board members. Mr. Thomas.
Mr. Chairman, I so certify.
Mr. Forehand.
I so certify.
Ms. Long.
I so certify.
Mr. Underwood.
I so certify.
Mr. Black.
I so certify.
And I so certify. We are going to reconvene the meeting. Previously recessed. I need to amend the agenda for item 8A, the adoption of health care and dental benefits for the county.
So moved. I thought we did that.
No, we did not. We weren't going to amend the agenda until after the
I so
closed
moved,
session.
Mr. Chairman. 8A.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of amending the agenda with 8A signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Any nays? Thank you. I would like to move to the 7:30 section. I'm sorry we're late, but we did have a closed meeting. This is now the public comment opportunity. Anybody who wishes to speak about anything, since there are no public hearings tonight, any topic may come up to the podium. You have 3 minutes. State your name and your magisterial district. Public comment is now open.
Mr. Chairman, board members, welcome.
Thank you.
And all your new ones as well. I'm new myself to being a resident of the town of Bowling Green. My name is Mark Gaines. Those of you who don't know who I am. My family's been here for years. I grew up around here. One of my concerns is the town itself. It is not in good shape, business-wise, property value-wise, and I'm very, very concerned. Like I said, I do live in the town limits, went to school here, and I know one of the reasons that we do have problems around and in the county is, so I'm being told, is the school systems is keeping people from coming around here. But one of the things that needs to happen is some development around the town. We don't have the people to come into the town. Everything is building up everywhere else. And I'm not talking about as far as businesses or industrial. We need rooftops. We need people. And I don't know of anything that's being done to even try to put anything like that around here. And right now, according to the budget, y'all are not in the best shape to even try to help out. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm planning on next year or this year running for town council because somebody's got to start making a change. You're going to see me more, hopefully, at these meetings because I want to learn more what I can try to do. I'm going to meet with the town. The town has got to probably start standing on their own 2 feet somehow. We have water that we can provide. We're only at half capacity. So we have room to grow within the town limits. We also provide some water for outside the town. We can also grow there. But we need y'all to try to help us in doing that. This town is not going to last much longer. It's going to be nothing but a county seat. I own businesses in town, I own buildings in town. Can't get people to rent. When they do come in, they don't stay long. And I know y'all notice this. So it's not just out on that one corridor. It's right here. I went to this high school. So, I'm just saying, putting that to y'all, we need to try to do something. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines. Anybody else that would like to address the board at public comment? Anybody else? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Public comment is now closed. We are going to move to agenda item number 5. Renewal of the lease with the Virginia Department of General Services for the Health Department offices at the Community Services Building. Mr. Cully, is that you or is that Mr. Pardon?
I'll take that, Mr. Chairman. We forwarded the approved lease that the board did to the Department of General Services, and in your package you'll see that they came back with some things that they had issues with, things that they considered a deal breaker. One, they asked for no rent increase for 6 years. They originally asked for 10. I don't know of anybody that can get that kind of deal. We certainly don't support that. There is some language in there about that they object to, that we reserve the right to have basically any type of increase we so warrant down the road. That maybe that's a little bit more than we need, and so we would certainly entertain either a CPI type clause and or not to exceed 2% a year, that type of thing. So I think that we certainly could negotiate with them on that. As we pointed out before, their lease is so convoluted when it comes to the reimbursement of utilities and things that we've set out in a table. We've got 3 occupants in the building. They're the largest, the dental clinic's second, and the county's ended up with some space because they don't want it anymore. So we've divided all those, we've measured those spaces, we've divided all that up, we've created formulas because they've got an electric meter on that building, but then the fuel oil heats this whole building and that building. So it's different square footage breakdowns based on what type of utility it is. We think we've laid that out in a table, and it's fairly easy for my folks to bill them reimbursement-wise. We get the bills, pay them, and then we'll send them a bill. We think it's pretty straightforward, and I'm confident Mr. Emerson will back me up on that. What they're proposing is just convoluted, and we just don't. We don't recommend that you do that. I mean, obviously, it's up to you. If you want to go with their changes, their proposed changes, it's certainly the board's pleasure. But from a staff recommendation, we'd be willing to even, like I said, stay with a CPI increase or not to exceed 2% if the board. And that doesn't mean it has to go up every year 2%. That would be up to y'all as you see fit. But they haven't had a square foot rate increase in a number of years. We're operating off of one I know that must be 5 or 6, 8 years old. And so what we're at is pretty low to begin with. So that's our recommendation, that you pretty much stick with what we've sent them before. But I told I'd bring them back to you.
We have discussed this and discussed this. We sent them what I thought was our best offer. Mr. Thomas, you and I have discussed this as well. How anybody can say we can go 6 years without increasing their rent, not that I want to do it every year or 10% a year, but we've got to be able to do something. Comments from other board members. Mr. Thomas, I see you shaking your head.
Oh, I'm shaking my head because I'm not going to go with anything that says no rent increase for 10 years because our costs go up before that. The reality is they haven't had an increase, I don't think, ever. They've been in that space since we renovated this building because they were part of the cost to renovate this building. So their $9,000 a month helps pay the debt service for this building. That's all I really care about. What we need to do is give them something, whether you use consumer price index, cost of living, COLA, whatever adjustment, give them that 2%, whichever is the highest. But, you know, we can't just let them go for 10 years and not have any increase. If that's the case, I want to, you know, deal like that somewhere.
Other board members' comments?
Is there any way to wrap up the utilities in the lease agreement rate and take that out of the equation?
Finance director says that gets difficult to do. I'll let her come up and talk about it, but it's in a reimbursement situation now, so they're paying an actual cost based on square footage for the meter that's on the health department portion of the building.
It's metered separately.
Metered separate from this building.
I understood it differently.
Oh, the oil, fuel oil, water and sewer, all that's metered once for this whole complex, but their electric bill is metered separate.
And plus, we also, I mean, we have janitorial, which goes up, that's included, the water. The fuel, if we have a good winter, it's not bad. If we have a bad winter, it's astronomical on this building. And if we wrap it into the rent, we don't have any way of equitably sharing that.
Unless we make the rent, you know, worst case scenario.
Yeah, exactly, which they're not going to buy that either.
But did you just say we pay for the custodial services?
We bill it to them, yes.
Oh, we bill it,
We
okay.
bill everything pro rata to them, whatever
Yeah,
they,
Yes.
but she said we pay for that. I thought that was something that we were giving them extra.
Oh, no.
So, okay. This is a Commonwealth agency. It's
Correct.
the Virginia Department of Health. I know the Commonwealth can afford this amount of money. I think I give them this much a year.
I think we need to allow staff to make the changes that they've, you know, that they've outlined to us, send it back, and they're paying what they're paying now. Ms. Long?
Yes, Chairman Seeley, my one comment I would have on this is the section where it says the county version contains the clause that reads, increase the amount of rent by more than 2% for any subsequent year during the initial and substantial subsequent term, and then giving the leasee 120 days notice. I wonder if this could not be, to me, if I was signing a contract, to sign something that says you're going to, you know, you can increase it by the minimum of 2% or 20%, but maybe we could fix it by just putting, increase the amount of rent by no more than 2% or by the CPI for the year, because that's a little nerve-wracking, and that may be what they're looking at. You know, if we wanted to get rid of them, we could do a 10 or 15% increase, and that would make me nervous if I was signing this contract. So that would be either put no more than or put CPI in there. Would be my recommendation.
We don't want to get rid of them. That's,
Right.
that's the
They're-
thing. We don't want to
they're-
get rid of them.
No, we don't.
Well, we don't, but
We don't wanna lose money.
if you were looking at this and it said that we have the right to increase every year more than 2%, then it would make me a little nervous. So put no more than 2%, or we have the right to increase it based on the CPI per year. And then I think they would feel more comfortable with it.
All right, so, do we want to do and/or consumer price index or 2%? Or do we want to say the lesser of the two? I mean, we okay with either or, whichever is less? So, and the max would be 2%. The rest of their issues here, we can't fix those. So my recommendation is to fix that and tell them, you know, this is where we are. Do you need a motion to do this?
I think that would be helpful, so they would know that the board actually has seen this and discussed it. And with that, we do recommend that we put in the section she wants about, we have agreed to some changes that we haven't done as we move the dental clinic around and some things. She wants that appendix in the agreed changes, some of which they've got to pay for, but she wants that sort of listed out of what those changes are.
Do we
So
have
have a problem.
those?
I don't think I have them so we got to put a doorway in, we've got to fix a little bathroom pass-through where they do samples, specimen samples, that type of thing.
And they're willing to pay for that, or they
Yes.
think
No,
they're willing to pay for that?
Yes, yeah, the bathroom issue, they are. We're putting the firewall up and the fire door up. The building official's been down there and looked at it, and I think he's actually looked at it with Mr. Schiebel's staff about what we've got to do to, it's just a little restroom. Currently, the restroom for specimen samples is in the dental clinic space. You actually go in the dental waiting room and go in, and they're trying to separate those spaces out. So we do have some work that we've agreed to do. That we've given them, I think it's been going on since the summer. We've given them some idea of cost, didn't we not, Mr. Schiebel? So I think they just want us to break that out into the lease. That's the only other thing, and we agree to that. I agreed to that in my email back to her that I didn't have any problem with that part because we have agreed in principle to what's got to happen down there to separate the spaces.
So you can delineate those expenses and that service.
Correct.
And then we're going to change, not to increase by more than 2%.
Or CPI.
Or CPI.
Whichever's lower.
Any other questions? I mean, we've got to put this in some sort of a motion, so.
Is this a 10-year term? Is this a self-renewing lease, or? I just didn't see a defined term, start, finish, proposed. I see something on the page 1, on the county version, 2025, but I was just a curiosity.
I think we were given a 10-year lease. We gave them a 10-year lease before.
They moved in, what, 92?
No, we didn't get here until '05? Yeah.
Is it 05?
Yeah, 92, we were still at the courthouse. It was about '05, somewhere in there. They were part of the funds we used to pay the debt service again. So, I mean, in your negotiation, make sure they understand we want them to stay. We also want to prevent the fact that we could lose money if costs go up. That's the only reason we got that in there.
And we do have maintenance that we have to do on the facility.
And we
There's
take care of the maintenance.
heating
we
and
do all that
cooling
stuff.
changes, that kind of stuff, so.
Right.
All right, so the 2% and the changes that Mr. Cully has agreed to, not to exceed 2% CPI, and the changes to the facilities that have been agreed to by both entities, is that close enough for a motion? Can I get a motion to,
That's easy just to say, so moved.
So moved.
do I have a second?
Oh, I thought I was doing that. All right.
Oh, you did. All right,
No.
I have a motion from Mr. Thomas, a second from
It works, either way.
Ms. Long, to approve the changes that staff has agreed to with the Health Department plus the CIP and not to exceed 2%. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Agenda item number 6. An ordinance amending Article 3, Chapter 21 of the Code of Caroline County prohibiting the
Question.
keeping of dangerous, exotic, wild animals, or dangerous, wild, exotic, or vicious animals. Nobody wants to touch this. And let me say that I will say that I am sympathetic to the person that is here who owns the animals, that has had them for a very long time. She's been here since '92. I personally don't want to see us take those. I think we at one point agreed that we would do another 60-day extension to facilitate how we were going to get to the end of this, because we are now with a new board, and I think there needs to be just some discussion amongst the new members of where they want to go. Is there a sense to do another 60 days, which we'd have to advertise between now and the next board meeting, to actually do that hearing for the 60 days and then make some headway on what we're permanently going to do?
Or could I add?
Yes, sir.
Of course, we haven't advertised anything. The soonest that we could have a public hearing on anything would be the first meeting in February. And there would be a little bit of time where we would revert back to the old 30-day ordinance before that public hearing, because the extension would have run out.
Run out, correct.
But you could certainly authorize us to advertise for the February meeting the permanent 90-day instead of 30, because I think we've all decided, or officially heard, that maybe it takes longer for somebody to move out of the county and dispose of their exotic animals than 30 days, and so that maybe at least that minimum fix buys us some time in case we run up on another case of these between now and then, that we can at least fix that while y'all work to decide what criteria you want to add in to the ordinance moving forward.
Ms. Long?
Mr. Chairman, I would agree to extending permanently to 90 days with health regulations and transporting animals, trying to find veterinarians that can do health certificates for exotics. 30 days is just not sufficient to find a proper location and to relocate an animal. Therefore, I think that should become a permanent part of the ordinance, and I would move to do that. I also, while I've got the mic, want to say I'm not real happy with this ordinance. I realize why it was done, and it's certainly something is better than nothing, but I would like to do some research and possibly in the future come with some amendments to this ordinance that might better fit our community as opposed to one that we basically designed from Fairfax County. But at this time, I would move that we go with the 90-day permanent change to the ordinance.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of advertising for the 90-day, I guess it's not extension, but 90-day period. Changing the 30 to the 90 days. We adopted wait a minute. Wait a minute. I think we have a material change. Hold on a minute. So if we don't, if we go forward with the 90 days, we actually don't do anything with the emergency ordinance that's in place. Expires.
Just let it die.
So then we would go to a 90-day period. And if other changes were wanting to be made, we would have to do them in that 90-day period, or do we have to enact another emergency ordinance? Is your mic on?
You could do them in conjunction with the 90-day ordinance, or if you came up with things later, you could, re-advertise and amend that ordinance.
Okay, but we have to work in that 90-day framework.
You
The
wouldn't
90
have
days
to,
has
no.
nothing to do with anything.
You-
No, I'm just making sure everybody understands that the max we have is 90 days, starting from the end of the emergency ordinance, which ends 1 February.
90 days for the emergency ordinance to be in effect.
This won't be an emergency ordinance.
The emergency ordinance goes out
This 1
February 1st.
February, right.
So February 1st, anybody with an exotic animal would then only have 30 days.
No, would have 90 days with what we're going to do. We're going to
Well,
have
but there's about a week. There's a week or so.
But we
in there.
wouldn't have advertised or changed the ordinance before
You're
that.
correct, so it would be 30 days.
So between February 1st
First.
and the time we actually adopt our ordinance, February 12th or whenever that day is, that 2-week window, if you get caught, it's only 30 days.
Correct.
After that, when we create a new, a new ordinance, then we would set 90 days as the permanent time frame.
Correct.
So it's only that 2-week window that somebody gets caught, there's an issue. And if they get caught, we'll do an emergency ordinance to give them 90 days.
Okay.
Let's just let this die and advertise for one in February.
We have the motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have 1 nay. I'm going to do, Mr. Thomas,
I voted aye.
Mr. Forehand,
Aye.
Ms. Long,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood,
Nay.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
and I vote aye also. Agenda item number 7. I take it this is Mr. Shebel.
Did you have a chance to read this whole thing? The solid waste ordinance?
No.
Nancy, you did?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Tonight's agenda item on unfinished business is the discussion of a proposed amendment to the solid waste convenience site manual, specifically dealing with construction debris. Currently, Caroline County does not accept construction debris at any of our facilities, very small amounts from residential. However, we do not accept any from commercial customers and contractors. Many of the board members have received several complaints and concerns from small businesses wishing to be able to dispose of construction debris, and as such, we have put forth recommendations of how we would proceed in handling the construction debris. We understand that a roll-off container to do small construction projects typically run between $300 and $400. So if you're replacing some windows in a house, it really drives up that cost when you're having to rent a large box like that to dispose of windows or siding, as they can't dispose of that at our facilities. And really, the smaller guys are saying it's kind of outpricing what they can do. The county has looked at addressing this by including small items that are listed in your board summary. Each of those items would be accepted at the Bowling Green convenience site exclusively. We would be able to handle that material there. We have scales, so as they come in, we would be able to charge by the ton so that we'd actually have an exact amount of what they're disposing of. We also currently have that facility currently accepts tires for commercial, and we are set up to be able to handle billing for those matters, as this would end up being a billing issue as well as we bill contractors for what they're disposing. Some of the concerns that we have are materials that we would not accept, such as lead paint, friable asbestos, drums and things of the sort, railroad ties, and oversized items. We do have an issue with trying to identify lead-based paint. We don't have the time nor the staff or the experience to be able to identify lead-based paint without going through specific EPA training to confirm that whether it is lead-based or not. We also have an issue with asbestos, of identifying whether it is asbestos or is not, and if it is it friable or non-friable. So there is some concerns that we have, safety aspects from staff of being able to handle this material as it's being dumped as well as when it's disposed of. If the material were to be accepted unbeknownst to us and we get to the landfill and they identify it as such, then the county would be responsible for cleaning and having a cleaning contractor come in and dispose of the material appropriately if it were to be dumped. If it was caught before it's dumped, they could turn us away and we'd have to find an alternative way of being able to dispose of those materials. The only way we can kind of figure that to try to get around that, to make sure we're trying to cover that, is to provide a bill of lading that each of the contractors, as they come in, describe what they're dumping and provide to us, and at least we would know what went into that container overall and which contractors dumped in that. I think we'd still have a hard time trying to identify which contractor actually dumped that specific material. However, that would allow us to at least be able to track contractors. The contractors do have ethics that they have to follow and licenses, and they would be responsible if we could identify them as the appropriate contractors responsible for dumping something that they weren't supposed to, and the EPA would actually enforce all of the enforcement regulations on that if that were ever to happen, and we could identify them. Looking at our cost, we've got a tipping fee at the current landfills of $31.50 per ton. We've included all of our expenses for vehicles, replacement of vehicle, wear and tear on vehicles, staff time, mileage, fuel, and everything. We've come up with $29.25 for our operation and maintenance cost, giving us a grand total of $60.74 per ton at today's current cost. We recommended a $65 per ton if the board so chooses to move forward with this to be able to cover some indiscretionary things as far as fuel costs going up. So if fuel jumps another $1, we don't have to come back before the board and ask for a change in this. So we would recommend starting at $65, which would cover all of our costs for manpower, transportation, as well as all the tipping fees. In your current manual, we've actually proposed in there all the different amendments that we would do on item number 11, and it specifically lists each one of those. If the board wishes to do so, we would ask that they would approve each of those. We have also in section 4 that we would like for you to at least to consider, even if you don't move forward with the construction debris. If you remember, about 4 or 5 months ago, we changed some terminology in another section. It used to say acceptable waste that was bagged or containerized up to 55 gallons. We've asked that we change that to not to exceed amount greater than 55 gallons receptacle. And what that does is you get people all the time that come in with a 5-gallon bucket of stuff, or come in with a trash bag or stuff, or just stuff in the back of the truck. And if it's not in a bag, technically we can't accept it. Or it's not in a 55-gallon receptacle, technically we couldn't accept it. So we'd like to at least change that to an amount not to exceed. And this is underneath of the disposal of residential waste, where we allow local businesses to be able to dump household-type trash at each of the sites, and it allows them to dump up to an amount equal to a 55-gallon container. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that the board may have on this.
Questions from board members? Mr. Forehand?
Would you accept cash at these?
We do not.
Okay. So they would have to, your tenant would have to track account information?
That's correct. They'd have to fill out all the information that the treasurer's office would require, along with either a social security number or a business identification number as well as all the information on the company, so that we would be able to set an account up for them to be able to dispose of that. We would then have the treasurer's office bill them on a monthly basis for what's been disposed of.
Okay. I don't see shingles anywhere in the listing.
Shingles are actually accepted as non-friable shingles, because there are friable as well that we accept.
Asphalt shingles.
Yeah. And we do accept shingles currently. We can add shingles to that list, because we do accept shingles from residents now,
Right.
but we do not from commercial. That could be added to that list as well.
Okay. Do you have any way to compact these roll-offs being dumped in through from the elevated area?
We do not. Each of the convenience sites has one compactor for the general trash, except for the Ladesmith site, which has two compactors. So we've got no way of compacting the open-top boxes. We do have a knuckle boom truck that we use to pick up all of the metals at the sites that we do try to push down and crunch it up the best that we can. But typically we're toting between 2 and maybe 4 tons, if we're lucky, up and down the road in these open-top containers. So it's very expensive for us to transport open-top containers.
Would a citizen be able to use the open tops as well?
Citizens currently can use the open top, and they can dispose of these things currently in small amounts.
With no fee?
That's correct. Okay. This is strictly for profit right now that we're looking at.
Right. How do you differentiate a citizen versus a business?
Most of the times you show up in a commercial vehicle, then you're a business. We'll ask, and if they're honest enough, there's times where somebody shows up in a pickup truck with shingles, and you see them in there from time to time. You know, it's hard if they tell you that it is, that it's from their mother's house, and next time it's their brother's house, and it's their sister's house. But, it's hard for us to play the police in those things. So, we try to as much as we can and address that and question them when we can about those. But most of the time they're in a commercial vehicle when they're trying to dump, or do not have a county sticker.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do we require a county sticker or any other proof?
We do. We require county sticker, Town of Bowling Green, Town of Port Royal, Lake Landau, or Lake Caroline stickers work as well, because we have people that don't live in the county that don't have county stickers but come to those properties, so we've included that as well. And then other forms of identification as far as a driver's license showing the county address or real estate.
Something.
Yes, sir.
Other questions?
Mr. Shebel, you mentioned that training was available for staff to be able to be educated on items that shouldn't be dumped, such as asbestos. How expensive is that, and how time-consuming? Is that something we should be thinking about for anyone in your staff in the future?
I don't believe so. The asbestos training is a 2-week training course, very intense, describing the asbestos disposal of it, removal of it, and you just don't have just the disposal. You got to take the whole class. So it's quite intensive when it comes to that, and dealing with hazardous substances, and they deal with a whole measure of them, but asbestos is one of them that you would have to do. So trying to send each of our convenience site attendants to that so that as it's coming in can identify that. We've got 24 typically to 26 part-time attendants at each of the sites. We'd have to send each of them to this type of training. Well, we're only accepting this at the Bowling Green site, so just be the Bowling Green convenience site attendants. So we've got 4 that typically work there, and then full-time staff that would be supervising them.
Thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
Well, thank you. Just curious, Mr. Shebel, you said again, you made something, comment about lead paint and things of that nature that we're not going to accept, but we have no real way of identifying lead paint containers. But once we transport, since our site is basically a convenience site, we take everything from there to someone else's landfill. Once we take it to their landfill and it's identified as something hazardous, the county's then responsible, right?
That's correct.
So, yeah, but we're going to be responsible with respect to our use of somebody else's landfill. And then they could say at any point in time, you guys brought things in that weren't good, you now can't use our landfill or your costs now double. Theoretically, we don't really know what they would say.
They could ban us from disposing of the facility if it became an ongoing issue.
But Mr. Shebel, aren't the landfills, the municipal landfills actually able to take lead-based paint as long as it's not loose or friable?
As long as it is on older wood material that has deteriorated and it's be part of a renovation project, then the landfill itself can dispose of that.
So it's not just, you couldn't take an open can of lead paint, I guess is my point.
But, I mean, that wasn't really where I was going. Where I was going was by opening this up. We did I know Mr. Underwood and I did quite a few constituent meetings when there was a construction debris landfill proposed in the county. I heard quite a few comments about the bad things that would go on with construction debris. And that was from someone whose entire job was to handle construction debris. So now we're going to take construction debris to our staff that is not totally understanding construction debris and disposal, and then take the liability of that when we take it somewhere else.
We've been taking construction debris at the landfill for as long as I've lived here. Anybody who has bought a house in Caroline that was built before 1970 is susceptible to lead paint. If you renovate...
I'm saying construction debris, period. I'm not just saying just lead paint. And the real issue is it apples to apples? Is a construction debris landfill the same as us accepting construction debris and then taking it somewhere else? Not quite.
I don't see the equivalent.
It's red apples and green apples, but it's still construction debris.
But the fact that they have a site that's already set up, they're taking it, I just don't see how it equates. So
okay, I just wanted to make that point. People that have come to my district meetings about construction debris said they didn't want it, and I think I'm going to hold to that. So I just wanted to make sure the county had liability if we did that, and that's my point and position. Thank you.
any further discussion? Everybody sees the changes that are being proposed by Mr. Shebel for the landfill. It is a complaint that I field on a regular basis, small contractors that can't afford to rent a 10 or 15 or 20 or 40-yard dumpster because they're doing small jobs. Currently, there's no facility to take this to. This would give us the opportunity. Most of them are folks inside the county that are doing small jobs for folks in the county. We've actually talked about a wall. I think that the folks at Germanna this spring in here have actually said that they would take a look at making that a project. which would facilitate being able to get stuff out of pickup trucks without throwing it over your head.
I'm not going to spend $70,000 for a wall.
Well, I'm not either.
And that's why I said get those folks to come to the wall.
I understand, but in the interest of what is here from Public Works, board members want to table this? Do you want to move forward with this? I just need to see what everybody's thoughts are on this and how they want to dispose of this.
Mr. Chairman, I do have some concern. One of the things that we, as Mr. Thomas talked about, was the fact of the disposal of construction debris, and now we're saying that we're going to, I just do have, I think we need to table, and I'm not totally happy with where we are, but
It gets tossed.
I don't think it's a good idea at this point. I mean, I just need to think, I would like to think about it a little more before I can support it. I mean, if you want to move forward, that's up to you, but at this point, I can't support it at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Shebel, admit this is, I'm not really wholly up on this topic, but where would someone like a small business, if we don't take it, where would they go with it? I mean, where would they go with this stuff?
Some of the contractors, I understand, have been keeping it at the house, and when they get enough, they'll have somebody deliver a container to the house and then dump it. Some of them will actually go to like the King George landfill and dispose of it there for a fee, go down to Ash Cake Road at the landfill there and dispose of those two locations, which are the closest places to be able to dispose of that. Typically, they're going to pay the at-door rate. Our rate is $31.50. If you were to go in there and just want to dump, it's going to be more expensive because we're on a contract rate and we dump about 10,000 tons of trash a year. So they're probably in the $40 range to be able to bring a truck in and per ton. So more than likely, if you're just disposing of some windows or some vinyl siding, we're limiting it to an 8-foot pickup truck bed of stuff, so it's not like they'll be able to bring, a whole bunch in at one time. They're going to have to load it and then take the truck back and come back. So at least we're trying to hold that down to help the small business.
Can I ask you a question? Speaking of small businesses, have you had a lot of them come to you?
I've only had 2.
And you're only going to do this at the Bowling Green convenience site?
That's correct, because we got to be able to have a way to be able to charge them for that. So the only way, since we've got certified scales at that facility, to be able to come in there. We've got more supervision there.
That's good. So when Mr. Black redoes his house, he's going to drive all the way down 639 with his windows and shingles hanging out the back of his pickup truck to dump them in Bowling Green. And then he's going to go back home and get another pickup truck of shingles and windows and 2x4s and drive all the way from Ladysmith to Bowling Green again.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Shebel, did you say that if they go to King George, it would be $40 a ton, whereas we're going to charge $65?
That's correct, because we've got our transportation cost. So we pay a tipping fee of $31.50. And then when you add in all of our cost to be able to dispose everything from our fuel expenses to truck replacement cost to accumulated expenses of employees cost per mile, all that comes to about $1.92 per mile. So when you actually figure in the trip cost over and back, it ends up being $29.24 of actual county cost to do that. So when you add those two numbers up, it's $60.74 per ton is what we would charge for them to be able to dispose of that.
I could drive a truck from Bowling Green to King George and stop and have lunch on the way back in Fort Roll, so for $25. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, how is it cheaper in King George?
Because they don't have any transportation cost.
Oh, right.
They had the landfill.
Yeah, okay.
Just looking for how anybody wants to dispose of this.
Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the recommendations as outlined as above. And we want to add shingles?
I think it's appropriate.
Yeah, and add shingles to the list.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second.
I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Nays?
Nay.
Nay.
Roll call vote. Mr. Thomas?
Nay.
Mr. Forehand?
Aye.
Ms. Long? Aye. Mr. Underwood?
Nay.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 8, authorization to apply for assistance to firefighter grant
Would a
for the
motion to
purchase
approve be in
of,
order?
excuse me,
Would a motion to approve be in order?
anytime.
I would make a motion to approve the application for a grant for the purchase of a fire engine.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can you get two?
And we don't need the 150 until 2017, late 2017.
I believe it would probably be 2018 fiscal year, given a 10-month build period, the design, the procurement, so, yes.
You've come up with the biggest request and the fastest approval. Thank you,
I
Chief.
appreciate it.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item 8A, adoption of the
Mr. Chairman,
health insurance.
I'd like to move that we adopt the health insurance provisions
Adopt
as
or
provided.
approve?
Approved, adopt.
Thank you.
That-
Do I have a
health-
second?
The health care insurance as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. A nay? Ayes have it, motion carries. Mr. Cully, capital project updates.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we've included the capital projects update. As you can see, we are just about completed the radio system, but remember, they've got to come back for that springtime test of the 300-some blocks, so we're holding out some funds on that. Ladysmith Fire Station renovations are just about complete. We're working through some punch list items, hope to have that complete in the next couple of weeks. School projects are moving along, as you can see as you ride by. And that would be, unless you have questions, specific questions on capital projects.
Do we have a percent complete on the school, the high school, by chance?
Kevin's
The
not
ballpark?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, there he is.
Jeffrey Honen's out there.
Okay, we have two people who can
Oh.
give us a percent complete. Mr. Honan is in the audience.
It's actually in the
And Mr.
document, I
White.
just didn't look
Yeah,
at
that's
the
from-
far right category. or
Yeah,
column.
that'd be for money, so I don't know whether that equates to the completion or not, because that includes some money we've spent
So
for.
we're about 10% done. then,
Yeah.
if we paid out 13.
Architects. and all that kind
10%
of
good,
stuff.
Jeff? 10% project, building-wise is good. Are we close to on schedule? I got two head nods, one from the building official and one from...
We're doing well.
Okay,
Didn't we spend $2 million in architectural fees?
correct.
Not quite yet.
1.8, 2 million, and yet we've spent 3.5 million in those two projects. So we can no way be close to 10% in construction, just based on the numbers. $25 million project, and we spent,
Remember, the stuff in the ground is the fastest and the cheapest. After you come out of the ground, is when it gets more expensive.
I'm
and-
just trying to count.
I
That's all I'm
understand.
doing.
All right. Any further questions? I believe we have one closed meeting. Oh, one more? Oh, calendar events, correct.
February 11th is Vaco County Government Day. If you would like to attend that and want us to help with the registration, please get with Mrs. Hall to get that straight. Alan and I normally go, and so if anybody else would like to go, we gladly take you up there if you'd like to ride to Richmond with us for that. And then the calendar, if I scroll down here fast enough, the county offices will be closed Friday and Monday, both state and federal holiday. Our next meeting is the 26th here at 6. Don't really have anything else spread out on the calendar. Then our next meeting after that is the 9th of February, and then the 11th of February is the VACO Day I spoke about. And then, of course, we're off for President's Day, February. So December, January, February is a lot of holidays, and then it kind of dries up for a while. But That would be all I have unless you have any other questions or anything anybody needs on a calendar.
I just got this in my mail today, but tomorrow Fort AP Hill is having a community leaders reception.
Correct.
That's not on our calendar, is it?
Yeah, that didn't make it.
They sent an email? They probably did. I'm getting 100 a day now.
That is tomorrow night.
Tomorrow, January 13th, 6 to 8.
Do you want to attend?
I was going to pass it to you as the chair.
Oh, I've got it. I've
Okay.
RSVP'd.
And you should be as a boarder. So should you.
Yes. Closing board comments, Mr. Thomas?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity, though.
Mr. Forehand?
I'm good, thank you.
Ms. Long?
I'm fine, thank you.
Mr. Underwood?
Just one, Mr. Chairman. I think about 3 weeks ago, we had another accident on Jericho Road. I want to make sure the board keeps that in mind. We talked to VDOT at our last meeting in December, but there has to be a safety study or something done on Jericho Road. There's just too many accidents, too many incidents occurring on that road, and we have to have something done in terms of a safety study there immediately, I would think. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And I think we did ask them for a safety study, so hopefully when they come back, we will get that. Mr. Black?
I have none, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
I would just like to thank my fellow board members for electing me as chairman tonight. I will do the best I can to get us out of here and keep us on point as I can. And with that, Mr. Black, if you will read the motion for closed session.
Yes, I move the board convene in closed session pursuant to the consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff exemption, section 2.2, 3711, period, dot 7 of the Code of Virginia, to discuss the status of several specific legal actions filed against the county.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a second, motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We are now in closed session. Are we convene? I move that the board reconvene. Oh, wait a minute. I move that the Carolina Board of Supervisors certify that, to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt from the open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting, which this certification applies, and only such public business matters that were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board. Mr. Thomas.
I so certify, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Forehand.
I so certify.
Ms. Long.
I so certify.
Mr. Underwood.
I so certify.
Mr. Black.
I so certify.
And I so certify. Is there a motion to come out of closed meeting?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Does somebody want to read the motion?
Mr. Chairman,
To come out of closed meeting. I said, okay. Now, is there a motion to come out of closed
I
meeting?
did. I made the motion to come out.
Okay. And I got a second. All in favor? Aye? Aye. Okay. Is there a motion as a result of closed session?
Mr. Chairman, I move to readopt the emergency ordinance relating to exotic animals adopted on November the 24th, 2015, by changing the 90-day deadline therein to 120 days.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is that complete enough? Mr. Underwood, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Roll call vote. Mr. Thomas?
I vote nay.
Mr. Forehand?
Aye.
Ms. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Nay.
And I vote aye. Motion carries 4-2.
Mr.
Motion
Chairman,
to-
move to adjourn.
Jeff Gordon?
Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Adjourn.